Take American Airlines, one of the biggest airlines on the planet. Hundreds of aircraft, thousands of flights a day, a brand almost 100 years old. Now, this entire company with all of its aircraft is worth about $7 billion on the stock market. And its miles program, that boring club where points trickle in for your flights, is valued at over $26 billion. The loyalty program is worth 4 times more than the airline that owns it. And this isn't a fluke or an accounting error. It's a fairly accurate description of what major airlines have become. I'll show you how it happened, and after this video, you'll look at your boarding pass differently. 3 things. First, I'll show you in numbers how one airline got more money from a bank for its miles than it earned on every flight for a whole year. Second, I'll explain where that money comes from because the mechanism is almost embarrassingly simple. And third, probably the worst part, what's actually happening to the miles in your account. Let's start with Delta because they lay it all out in their official report. In 2025, Delta brought in $63 billion in revenue. Operating income? What's left after all expenses? $5.8 billion. Now look at this. That same year, American Express paid Delta $8.2 billion just for miles. One payment from a bank was bigger than the airline's entire profit. Delta can put every single aircraft in the air, fly 200 million people around the world, pay for fuel, crews, and maintenance, and still end up earning less than what arrives in one bank transfer. And this isn't a one-time payment, it's a system. Delta openly talks about a target of $10 billion a year. Now the main part, what is the bank actually paying for? The mechanism is almost laughably simple. The airline creates miles, not earns them, not mines them, just creates them. It's a line in a database, but that's as close to zero. Then it sells those miles to a bank for real dollars, wholesale, by billions. The bank hands them out to you, adds a bonus for card purchases. And when you finally go to spend those miles, it's the airline that has to provide the plane. Getting it? The company prints its own currency out of thin air and sells it for hard cash. Now you'll fairly say, hold on, I don't buy miles, they're given to me for ordinary spending. That's exactly the trick. You're not paying for them directly, the bank is. And the bank gets that money from merchants through card processing fees and from you through annual fees and interest. The merchant builds that fee into the price on the shelf. So in the end, everyone in the country chips in for your free miles, including people who have no miles at all. It all started in 1981 when American Airlines launched AAdvantage, the first major miles program. But the real turning point came in '87. American struck a deal with Citibank and issued the first card where miles accrued on purchases. From that day on, you could pile them up without ever boarding a plane. That's when the airline started turning into a bank. You'll fairly say misinterpretation. Analysts can calculate whatever they want. Well, this model got stress tested under the harshest possible conditions. 2020, planes grounded, borders closed, airlines burning. They need money. Urgently. American Airlines raised $10 billion against the AAdvantage program. Delta borrowed $9 billion against SkyMiles. United, over $6 billion against Mileage Plus. Think about that. These companies own hundreds of real aircraft, each worth tens of millions. And the lenders essentially said, we're not that interested in the planes. We'd rather lend against the points club. The logic is simple. In a crisis, you can't sell a plane, and you can't lease it out. It's dead weight. But miles bring in money from the bank, even when every flight is canceled. People never stopped paying with cards. Now about your account. If the airline prints the currency, it's also the central bank of that currency. Except a real central bank has a charter, independence, and an obligation to defend the currency. Here, there's nothing of the sort. The same person decides how many miles to print and how many miles a ticket will cost. Can you guess how that ends? They print miles happily because the bank pays for them. And the exchange rate, well, that can be nudged. Back in 2015, Delta scrapped its fixed award chart entirely. You used to know a flight costs 25,000 miles. Now the price floats and the same ticket can cost 40 or 50,000 with no warning. One day, the exchange rate simply got worse. By various estimates, miles lose around 15% of their value a year. Dollar inflation, meanwhile, runs around 2 to 3%. Imagine a bank telling you your deposit will lose 15% of its value every year. And exactly how much we'll announce later, and not always. You'd pull your money out the same day, yet millions of people hoard miles for years. Now, a caveat, otherwise this becomes a lie in the other direction. Airlines haven't forgotten how to make money flying. Delta's operating margin for 2025 was around 9%, and that margin comes from expensive seats, business class, premium, the wide seats up front. But not all passengers generate profit, only very specific ones. If you're flying a cheap fare in the back, you bring the airline pennies. Your real value is something else entirely. You're the reason miles are worth anything at all. Which raises a fair question. If miles are a gold mine and flying is a headache, why don't they just stop flying altogether? They can't. And that's the most interesting part. Miles are worth something precisely because you can fly on them. The flights are the collateral that holds up the currency. Take away the planes, and miles become meaningless numbers, and the bank stops paying. So, a modern airline is a financial institution that keeps a fleet as collateral for its own currency. The planes don't fly for the tickets. They fly so the miles don't turn to dust. So what do you do with this? One rule: miles are not savings. They're a perishable product with an invisible expiration date. Saving in them makes about as much sense as saving in a currency whose rate is set by one interested party. So don't collect them. Earn them, spend them within a year or so. And before you redeem, calculate one thing. Divide the ticket price in dollars by the number of miles they're asking for it. That gives you the value of 1 mile. If it comes out under a cent, it's a bad deal. For a ticket like that, just pay cash and save your miles for something expensive. On long-haul flights and seats up front, the same mile gives you 2 to 3 times more. And you know what the most curious part is? Once you've seen this, you'll start noticing the same structure everywhere. Store rewards, coffee shop points, cashback. Everywhere someone is printing their own currency and deciding for themselves what it's worth. On this channel, that's exactly what we dig into, where big companies actually keep the register. If you enjoyed it, hit like, it helps other people find the video, and subscribe so you don't miss the next breakdown. And in the comments, tell me which company to break down next. I read all of them.